We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you.
Good evening and welcome along to NUFC Matters. It is the three amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend. Good to see everybody, and in the chat, 190 waiting for us to come on. It's never taken for granted. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and as always, joined by Mitch, who is entertaining. Stu Penman is in the vicinity, but not on screen tonight. You can catch him on Sunday, of course. And Steve Hasty, fresh from another day's graft, is looking resplendent in black and white, Steve. That's the way to describe it.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thought we'd sport a little bit of Adidas just to get the theme for next season.
Very good, very good. Well, let's start there because Mitch sent me a tweet, and he copied us in the WhatsApp group that we've got, and just an interesting tweet that's gone out today. Mitch, tell us a little bit more.
Yes, Seller have released a tweet saying they've signed a memorandum in strategic partnership with Adidas, which was looking at promoting lifestyle and quality of life in Saudi Arabia. Now, part of the Vision 2030 that they have is improving the health of the nation and getting people active and getting people into things. Now, obviously, the conduit for this has been Newcastle United Football Club. There's no coincidence there, is there? But also, I do wonder if a strategic partnership between the two can only then, in the long term, benefit us going forward. Two of our main sponsors working together on projects, building long-term visions, again with 2030 in mind. It's the kind of stuff that's just going to disappear tomorrow. You know, these things are made to last. In particular, because I've seen what's happened here in the UAE, with the plan that the UAE have had, particularly Dubai, which is most certainly what Saudi Arabia have leaned on heavily in looking at their goals. You know, this is a region with a significant proportion of people under 30. But it's also a region with a significant problem with things like diabetes, obesity, and people being inactive. And so that's what the motion's for. But anything that in this region is tying Newcastle United's two main sponsors together has got to, in the long term, have a kickback for Newcastle United too. And I think also shows commitment from everybody to long-term projects. And I think we can take heart in that and look and say, yes, we might be sitting at the end of the transfer window feeling a little disappointed or confused, which I'm also we're going to talk about that later. There's things going on in the background that say this is still a long-term project. This is here to stay, and it's not going anywhere.
Interesting that, wasn't it, Steve? I mean, you know, we've often spoken on this program about the potential of things happening over the course of the next 12 months. And, you know, I'm sure things will. You know, we're talking about training ground sponsors, we're talking about stadium sponsors, you know, kits, training kit sponsors, so much that we don't have at the moment. But ultimately, you know, some of those things we expect to see sooner rather than later. But to hear this link between Seller and Adidas, yeah, it's definitely a bit of an eyebrow raise tonight on that.
Yeah, absolutely. An eyebrow raiser for a lot of people, but I don't think so much an eyebrow raiser for us three, because if anyone who's watched the show over, you know, going right back to the very start, we talked endlessly about the possibilities and the links and the health benefits and the tie-ups that could come. The number of young people that live in Saudi Arabia. I don't know how many times, if somebody has the time to go back, they'll know that Mitch has mentioned this many times over the last 2 years, 3 years. Pre-takeover, we talked about, you know, if this happens, what it'll mean for the people of Saudi Arabia, not just the people of the Northeast, not just our football club, but the vision of 2030, but an awful lot more. So, yeah, I mean, this kind of cements what the direction that we anticipated this going. In terms of sponsors, we didn't necessarily suggest Adidas because we didn't know that Adidas was going to be the shirt sponsors, but we had that vision that this is the opportunity that could avail itself. This is where Newcastle United could be on centre stage in Saudi in the years to come. The name of the football club, the name of the region, very much on everybody's lips, and sponsors and tie-ups. And it's also interesting to note today, I think, that the Saudi government over the last week have announced that they're making it a lot easier in terms of visas, because of a tie-up with the British government, for people to be able to come and watch the games from Saudi Arabia, without the preamble that you currently have to go with getting a visitor visa. So they've streamlined that process. This is all the sort of thing that we talked about, all the benefits that would come. So it's going to be an interesting 18 months to 2 years, and however much longer the Adidas sponsorship sticks with Newcastle. Hopefully up to 2030 and beyond.
Yeah, okay, we'll watch that with interest. And yeah, I mean, it's something we have talked about on here many times, and great to see little things come to fruition that we mentioned, and in due course. And you know, I guess from our perspective, we don't like to speculate on here. We do like to try and give you a little bit of a push in the right direction when we feel something may happen. And once again, pleased to see, you know, that has come around. Transfer window, lads. Open and shut case. Nick got in a bit earlier and said, I understand FFP, but I believe our owners have made a mistake in not signing anyone. Would you agree? I mean, I mentioned on the Northeast Footy Brekkie show on Toon Radio this morning that, you know, I felt that Darren Eales conditioned the support, you know, the fans, with his statement early on to potentially not expect any transfer business whatsoever, and to, you know, potentially see a player go out. That didn't happen. Kieran Trippier, Almiron, Wilson, Bruno, to a lesser extent, Jamal Lascelles, all linked with moves out of Newcastle United, St James's Park this month. None of them have gone. It felt a little bit as if we were conditioned to accept that being a good thing. It felt like, you know, the majority of people, it felt like a bit like a Darren Brown mind game, you know, where we all sat back about 10 days before the end of the window. We all sat back and went, okay, well, fair enough. As long as we're not going to lose Trippier, we're not going to lose Almiron, well, we'll accept that for now. And that's what it felt like. And I mean, I was really wound up a couple of weeks into the transfer window, but I know from my own personal opinion, not speaking for anyone else on the platform, I felt a bit calmer on the last week. I felt bored that there was nothing going to happen, but I was accepting that, and I was over the moon that we weren't going to lose any players. And that seemed to come out of Tyndall's press conference, which we'll come to. But Tyndall's press conference today, he was saying, you know, it's a good result not losing anybody. You know, we haven't strengthened, but we haven't become weaker in this window. So it's as you were, and we're confident in our ability to push on and motivate these people. So yeah, what's your thoughts, Mitch? Have the ownership made a mistake? I would say not, but you might have a different opinion.
I said before, I would be disappointed if Eddie wasn't backed in some way. I remain a little disappointed. I don't think they've missed a trick. I do worry they're trying to be a little bit too cute. Although again, it sounds like some of the players that have been out for a while seem to be a lot closer to coming back than we realised all of a sudden. Has that had an influence on it? Don't know. The one thing I am glad is we haven't spunk a load of cash unnecessarily anyway. You look at how Phillips started for West Ham. Imagine if his first touch in a Newcastle shirt was to pass it to a Villa player and go 1-0 down after 90 seconds. That was never a good move at basically $500,000 a game, and he's not match fit, and he's not match sharp, and he was a concern. Were we getting Calvin Phillips, who played for Leeds under Bielsa and was one of the top 3 midfielders in the country, or were we getting Calvin Phillips, who was overweight and couldn't get a game at Man City? I think we'd have had that question answered. And I'm certainly glad we didn't waste cash in that way. I think we'd have been very, very pissed seeing that happen as one main move of the January transfer window. We don't know how he's responded to it. I know there's a theory he was missing from the press conference today and let Tyndall do it because he's not happy. But we're in tinfoil hat territory a little bit with that. We can all guess a bit about it, but we don't know. I think there are still questions to ask about certain things. They can only hide behind FFP for so long if there's been earnings tables listed today, which shows us as earning more than Liverpool in the last year. So I think there's only so long that can last. But at the same time, I would rather not take the chance of having a dalliance with the Premier League when they're in a finding mood, shall we say, about FFP. Because by God, we'll get hammered if we are seen to have transgressed. That's what they want. Would be giving them what they want and handing it on a plate if we did that. So I understand why they've got to be cautious. People saying, oh, well, we could worship Dummett out because he was interested in him. $500,000 or whatever would have saved on that. Really wouldn't have put a dent in the FFP enough to do something about it. So I don't think that's sensible either, really. Letting players go without a reasonable way to bring more in than we let go would have been a nonsense too. So, we've had to play a little bit of chess with it. I feel everybody's frustrated. I'm frustrated as well. Like I say, I'm disappointed. I feel like it could have been back up. Because there's absolutely no way Bruno and Gordon are getting to 32 games without picking up another yellow. They are both going to do 2-game suspensions. Let's be honest about it. I can't see that not happening because I think Bruno picks up yellows sometimes when he's treated harsher than other players. Gordon to an extent as well, but it's also part of that game. And if you take that out of that game, they're lesser players. So we've just got to let it happen. Now, if we've got players coming back quicker, then that is less of a burden than what it would initially seem to be today. But let's just see what, I guess, tomorrow brings and what the squad tomorrow's got.
Yeah, Chris Jagger, good evening. Says, I saw a stat that says only 79 million's been spent by Premier League sides during the window. I think that all teams are seeing FFP differently after Everton's deduction. Jules, good evening. Says, Mitch, Jesus, don't say that. Can already hear some channels and socials ready in a show. How protest against owners. Eddie hates the owners. Yeah, that's very true, Jules. Eddie's been hung out to dry regarding the ins and outs, which is what Mark Byers said earlier. He's probably fed up talking about it. This should be Ashworth answering these questions, not Eddie. Derek says, I think in the summer we can lose players and have time to replace and bed into the team. Evening, Ferry Hill Max, hope you're well. Benny says, I think you lad said that Harrison from Man City was a deal worth 9 million. That's something had Miggy gone for the 26 million, surely would have signed a first teamer. But Miggy is one lad that's fit every week. Rumours coming out now, Benny, undisclosed fee that it was as low as 2.5 million for Harrison. So not the 9 million that was originally pushed out there by the media. Sean says there's no excuse not bringing in a striker on loan. Bournemouth and Fulham were able to do it. It needn't have been a star, but cover for a very brittle duo up front. Europe is critical for us this season. And Emmett, good evening, listening in the Metro Centre, he says. I hope you're having a great time there, mate. Slightly disappointed we didn't sign anyone, but the positives are Barnes and Willock, etc. on the way back, says Michael. And Cynical Jim says, to be fair to Phillips, it was his first game with a new team after a little bit of criticism earlier in the chat there. With very little training with the teammates and obviously not going to be match fit. Mark says, the Premier League will be in panic mode after how quiet the window was. Their product will suffer. FFP is surely on borrowed time now. Lots of great points coming in. Try to get through as many as I could there, Steve, before we brought you in. I mean, I think Sky will probably have something to say about it. They love milking that. And I mean, their viewing figures must be through the roof on transfer deadline day. But I tell you what, I bet you a few people did what I did yesterday, which is switch off, because the big headlines were Lewis Hamilton signing for Ferrari and the trailer for Fury and Usyk, being released. And no, that could be a waste of money if what I'm hearing from Tyson's training camp's correct. But we will wait and see what happens with that. But yes, Steve, your thoughts on the window? Was it the owners hanging how out to dry? Was how complicit in all of this? Was he? He's very good at saying the right thing at press conferences. Was he? Was he told this months ago that this was going to be the case and he would have to get on with things? What's your gut feeling on this?
Around about December time, Howe was talking about bringing players in. Right up until the end, he was talking about the possibilities, but maybe he's not. He wasn't kind of tempering the whole thing. Darren Eales came out with the statement, and I got the impression there was some conflict there, I must admit. Whether or not Darren Eales was also aware that nobody else was going to be buying anybody, nobody else was going to be selling anybody, there was nothing going to happen in the transfer market, whether that's the sort of card that he was playing, because let's face it, it's been the most damp squib of a transfer window that there's ever been. I think Simon Jordan was missing on the show on Talk Sport on Thursday night when Jim White does his great big, stick the yellow tie on and talk about transfer window closing and how exciting it is. And when he was asked why he wasn't on the show, he says, because I couldn't be bothered, because I would have just fallen asleep, because there was nothing going to happen. And it was pretty obvious to him as well, I mean, Jordan's a character to begin with. But, getting back to ours, I think what we had, I just jotted down there, we had Lascelles, Isak, Wilson and Target mentioned in dispatches as possible moves when there was nothing, not a single whisper out of the club. The club mentioned Trippier. There was a little more of a mention that, the fact that people came in for Trippier and then didn't. The Almiron story, I think, was stronger than was made out. And there was also whispers about Dubravka being happy. Now, I think the Almiron and Trippier one, fair enough, but I think all the others were scrambling around among the press, looking for stories, looking for something to write. I've done a little piece in there on NUFC Fans United, the little match preview, where I've said, based on the press conference that we've just witnessed with Jason Tyndall and the questions that the press asked, there's no Pulitzer Prizes going to be given out to any of the Newcastle press pack. We know that for a fact because they had ample opportunity. And what did they talk about? They talked about chocolate. They talked about photographs. They didn't get into any nitty gritty at all. And I just thought, well, this sums it up. This was, if ever there was a GCSE press conference, that was it today in my mind. No earth-shattering questions, no thought given. And most of them would have got an F anyway when the results come out of that GCSE. So all in all, complete waste of time. But there again, you look at the Brozier situation at Chelsea. Chelsea wanted 50 million, and it was a straight deal. Then it became 5 million with a loan fee of 5 million, and then a guarantee that you would buy them. Then all of a sudden on the last day it became no fee, no guarantee of buying, just take them on loan. And that was Chelsea panicking. And there was a whole list of other players. That summed up the transfer situation for me. And again, you look at the press, and as you say, young Harrison, £9 million at the beginning of the week, and it looks like it was less than 2. So again, it shows you that they know absolutely nothing. And it's very disappointing. I'd rather that they didn't come out with anything than make stuff up, because it's pretty obvious that a lot of the stuff is taken from other people's social media links and gossip and innuendo and whatever else you want to call it. Twaddle is the word I would use.
Yes,
I
Gary
think
says, I reckon Peter Odemwingie was waiting in his car in the car park a little bit.
Must be a taxi driver now, is he?
I tell you one thing that come up that Roya deal for me though. It's the final deal apparently is if he doesn't play, they pay a fee. But if he does play, there'll be no fee. That got me thinking today, Lewis Hall, we've got a loan with an obligation. Are we on some sort of deal where it's the other way around? If he plays so many games, the fee goes up. And if he hits another threshold, does the fee go up? And if he does another threshold, does the fee go up? And are we in a situation where they're managing the deal and managing the player so that they're paying what they want to pay rather than paying the 25 million that we were told was the obligation? Maybe it's the 25 million is an obligation if he plays 20 games. It just got me thinking today that deal's so convoluted and weird. I've never come across a deal like that for a loan. Is that we got some sort of weird clause in that deal with Hall? Because Hall doesn't seem unhappy. He doesn't seem like a player who's sitting on the bench twiddling his thumbs and he's destined, and he's paid off. He seems reasonably comfortable. You watch him interact on some of the things they were doing. Like I don't know if you saw the darts thing they did this week, and he's very much part of the team and very much part of the squad. That's not a player who's out in the cold by any means. That's a player who's happy to be part of the squad. And that deal just started to sort of get my brain thinking that is there something in the whole deal that we're missing? That's why he hasn't made the appearances we thought he might.
Well, it's funny that because Eddie Howe said it was a very complicated deal, Steve. He's said that on more than one occasion when being quizzed about why Hall isn't getting a game.
Yeah, and there are complicated deals all over Chelsea at the moment, aren't there? There's a complicated deal with Roma, for example, with Lukaku. Now that Mourinho's no longer there, what happens? Does Lukaku come back with still a long-term contract? He's just one of a number. The number of players they tried to get out on loan and couldn't. That tells me that their financial fair play is going to be in the dog dirt for next season. I think there's clubs been scrambling around trying to get the figures down for the end of this season so that they don't look too bad. And now I think they're caught in a big trap. But yeah, I mean it shows you how complicated deals have become. I mean, you listen to the Price of Football podcasts and you listen to some of the financial experts and you listen to interviews with agents and you bump into agents and talk to them and you find out that, the days of a player going down to Scotch Corner and signing in a hotel, and the manager meeting them halfway from the club and all this type of thing, long gone. And it's not that long ago, when Terry Mack and Kevin Keegan were driving down there to convince Rob Lee to come up and stuff like that. And now it's all done in a totally different way. And the manager is well out of all of the negotiation. It's all done by lawyers, agents, accountants, financial advisors, tax advisors. I mean, God knows how many people must be in a room when they start to do a deal. And it must be even worse when it becomes a deal that's involving an overseas club as well, translations and such like. It's just such a complicated way of moving players on, and this is just, I suppose, the nature of football now. That there's sponsors get involved, there's players moving to a club where everybody's on a boot deal of something else or a kit deal, and this player's on a kit deal with a different company, and then that involves that company as well. Whether it's Nike or Adidas or whomever. All of these are little cogs that all need to fall into place before a deal's done. But getting back to where we are, we haven't lost anyone other than the two that we know of, which was Hayden and Manquillo. We've brought young Harrison in. Are we stronger in the short term? I think we're a little bit weaker because we've also, as Mitch has already mentioned, we've got that fear of knowing that we're going to lose the two lads through suspensions at some point in time. We've still got hanging over us the injuries. We're still hearing a couple of weeks away, getting there, etc., for Barnes and for Willock. If Eddie knew and he had a date set, or if Jason Tyndall now, after today's press conference, had a date set where he could actually ring it in the calendar and say, there you go, that's the day that Willock's going to be back. That's the day Barnes is going to be back. Great. That's the day Anderson's going to be back. But unfortunately, it's not working out like that for us, and with the suspensions hanging over players, I just wonder where we're going to be. I suppose Wilson returning, and it sounds like potentially on the bench tomorrow. Isak, doubtful, but that but was like the most positive but I've heard from a fan's point of view. I was going, yes, that's a but that means he's all right, because he didn't go down and clutching all sorts of parts of his body as he has done in the past. I mean, he literally sat on the floor, felt a twinge, sat on the floor and was carted off after 43 minutes. Let's hope it was very, very much precautionary, because I think the lad is a little bit soft when it comes to injuries. He's not one of those that can run around and go through the pain barrier. I think his whole skeletal makeup, the long legs, the dynamic running that he does, I think that, especially with the injuries he's had recently, I think he very much wraps himself in kit gloves as well. Superb player that he is. On his day, unplayable. But we've got to just be very, very careful, because with a player like that, another setback and we could lose him for the entire season. Suddenly finding out that it's an operation, and a groin operation would mean that we wouldn't see him until next August, September.
Yeah, that's a concern. And repeating injury, a repetitive injury is one thing. But I mean, again, we're not 100% sure. But he may well be getting told that if you feel anything, if there's any pain in it, get yourself down. Get yourself down, and that's probably the best thing to do. Okay, I'm going to go to tweet of the week. George is missing, so Neil, I think a good idea. I've texted Dad, but I haven't had a response. Maybe he's give him a bell just to see how he's doing, and I'll crack on with the tweets of the week. And a big thank you to everybody who sent these in. Star Wars, everyone knows I enjoy the Star Wars fans. Only a Star Wars fan will see this. Excellent. Thank you very much. And the Star Trek ones are becoming as popular. I've got about 100 of these to use. Back on Earth, it's a 5-minute walk from my house to the pub, but it's a 45-minute walk from the pub back to my house. The difference is staggering.
Oh, yes.
Very good. That one friend who will stay with us for lifelong was a great tweet and a lovely photograph there of two guys, two actors who got a lot of respect for each other. This was the reply underneath. Really? Then why Spider-Man didn't come when Titanic was sinking? Those of you who follow X and will have seen this Aston Villa account, my God, who he's become a bit of a vexation to the spirit whenever there's a game between Newcastle and Aston Villa. Back in 5 minutes, gone to the bank. Villa Watch 1, whoever he is, just loves getting a rise out of Newcastle fans, and he does it. And he promised everybody £100 if Villa had got beat off Newcastle. He's then deleted his account. So, yeah, lots of fun around that this week. Gary Scott, cheers. Thanks for all your tweets this week. Excuse me, Doctor, can I ask you something? What happens when we die? We give your bed to somebody else. Not a good bedside manner, is it? And if you go into a restaurant and get this spaghetti carbonara for tea.
Oh dear me!
Very good. A lot of effort went into that, Steve. I think a lot of effort went into that.
Too much effort.
And good to see somebody sticking a little bit of money in for the stripper. Excellent. And this one, anywhere you want, you got it. Anywhere you need, you got it. And we go Roy Uberson.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
And now, if you'd like to repeat your vows, A-E-I-O-U. Excellent. Don't stop retrieving. Hold on to that feeling. Very good. Thank you for that one as well. People like to get us to sing, don't they? Why alien abductions happen only at night. It's 9 p.m. and you're just now telling me you need a human for school tomorrow. And thanks to Ray for this one. Putting these two shops next to each other, it's a sin.
That's
The
brilliant.
pet shop, boys. Excellent.
Very
I got sent this one a couple of weeks ago when we're getting some bad weather. I do like this. Speed limit 25. Look underneath. The bittersweet moment when a signpost dies and its spirit leaves its body. Very good. Great photo. Lost Voice guy was in good form this week. Hi, ITV Football. I'm available if you want to sub Lee Dixon at half time. I can't talk, but I'm a lot less depressing.
Brilliant, that. Absolutely brilliant.
We'll get a lot of these inbox ones from people's mobiles. Rice, salt, wheat, cucumbers. What the hell is this, dude? When did you unblock me? I used to write a grocery list here. And how did you get on the opticians? Registered blind. Shut up. Aye. Are you home? I don't know. I cannot see. And I think this probably applies to a few people. Finally, a running event that interests me.
Definitely.
Somebody mentioned in the chat before that we're still going through Klopp week. It's now Klopp month. Well, they've started building a statue. And don't forget, the Klopps go back this summer, guys.
Did you see his press conference, by the way?
I did,
where
yes.
Where he got interrupted by the dentist. Was that you, Mitch?
What a classic. Absolute classic, wasn't it, he says?
Yeah, not me.
I can't remember seeing so many gutted Scousers since the invention of locking wheel nuts. That was another good one that I got sent. And this one. Yeah. Elton John playing a tune for Klopp. Moving on. Vegan. The chicken you're eating had a family. Me. That's why I ordered the family bucket. No one gets left behind. Thanks, Stephen.
Clever, Stephen.
And yes, some vegan cheesecake to wash it out, to have it afterwards for your dessert. And please stand close. You are holding a pistol, not a rifle, is a sign that I was sent from a urinal this week. And I'd hate to be the receptionist who answers the telephone calls here, guys.
Oh. Uh-oh.
We don't need to. Can you work this one out? It's Pink Floyd, lads.
Yeah.
We don't need no education. Very clever. Very clever.
That'll be a song.
Totally irresponsible for the BBC to be encouraging fans to get stuck into the crowd. Get involved. Get involved. Ugly scenes. Brilliant that. Brilliant that one.
Good.
And I'm sorry to have to tell you, sir, that your wife's been in an accident. How is she? She's rather critical. Typical. What you complaining about now? And later that day, Sally taught herself how to ride her own bike.
Good move, Sally.
J.R. Hartley, Piccadilly Records. Yes, I wonder if you can help me. I'd like to get bummed by the Happy Mondays. Thanks, Ian. And last three. My mate set me up on a blind date. He said she's a lovely lass, but there's something you should know. She's expecting a baby. I felt a right prat waiting in the pub wearing nothing but a nappy.
Oh.
And Tesco's aren't beating around the bush. Ideal for Valentine's Day underneath the cucumbers. And the winner for this week is this one. It's a nice day for a light breading. Thank you, Gary. Here's to sing again, really. Keep your tweets coming in. You can send them to us on our Facebook page or Facebook group. Just like the page follow the group, and you can also send them to us on Twitter. That is it. Thanks. And stand by your beds. Where have you been?
Sleeping.
You've been sleeping. Well, that's great.
I was sitting waiting for it to start, and when the next thing I knew, our Neil phoned us and woke us up.
As long as you're all right, George. Welcome to the show, mate.
Yeah, I
Welcome
was
to the
all right.
show.
As long as it wasn't us that put him to sleep.
No, definitely.
No, seriously, I was sitting all eager to start, and next thing I knew, the phone rang, and it was Neil telling us that you were started.
Classic.
I'll stick you down there next to your son. He can keep nudging you if you're not off. So Jason Tyndall, Steve, today in front of the cameras. I found it refreshing. Eddie feeling a touch unwell this morning, not feeling too good. Did take training this afternoon and is out and about tonight because one of my mates has just texted us to say that he's just bumped into him. So he's hovering around the Newcastle area tonight, is Eddie Howe. But it sounds as if everything's okay for tomorrow. Thoughts on the way Tyndall covered? I mean, I haven't had time to do them. I've managed to dictate it, and I'll do it tomorrow before the match tomorrow. I'll stick the press review out. But I thought it was fantastic. It was refreshing. Put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, it's not often we hear from Jason Tyndall, and I was being a bit flippant when I talked about the way the press handled it. But at the end of the day, the guy was put in front of the cameras, and he's obviously got a sense of humour. We know that now. We knew it anyway by some of the things. It was interesting when he was asked about Emery and failing to handshake with him and this type of thing, and how it didn't faze him. He wasn't bothered. All the usual things that you would have expected to hear. He's when they went on about the photographs, and he said, there's a bit of a superstition now among the squad, and some of the people have to stand in exactly the same place for the photograph now, and it was all done in jest. It was all a little bit of fun, and it's now taking a life of its own. And I think that shows you that the sort of camaraderie, the humour that's existing among the squad. The fact that they can get around the room and that everybody's pally and this type of thing. I'd rather have a dressing room like that than the one that are always at each other's throats, to be perfectly honest, Steve. Let's face it. And we've known at times that Newcastle United dressing room has been exactly that. Poisonous at times. Cliquey, almost to the point of, at each other's throats. Older players arguing with younger players throwing chairs at managers and coaches and all of that type of thing. Even when players went out for a drink, they couldn't sit civilly together at times. There was trouble. And it's just refreshing that we've got a bunch of lads and quite a mixed bunch in terms of coming from different parts of the world, but they all seem to be getting on. It's interesting as well. It's sort of, that we're aware of the dynamic on the pitch, but there's obviously also a slightly different dynamic within the dressing room itself. And we all think, Joe Linton and Bruno together, but obviously Bruno and the situation with the chocolate and sharing it out among the players and having a good laugh and everybody, we're now into chocolate gate though, aren't we? There's going to be kids at the match now with arms full of chocolates, and especially when it comes out to Easter, there's going to be Easter eggs and all sorts thrown on the pitch. People wanting the player shirts, but it's all good humor, it's all good fun, but it kind of, in a way, and Mitch will probably agree, it kind of took the heat out of the week. It took the heat out of the questions about transfers and the lack transfers. It meant that, Jason Tyndall was in a situation where he couldn't answer any of the questions, so it was pointless asking him. He hasn't been involved in it. It's not his role. He's the number two. So the whole press conference goes off on a different tangent. And especially after the way that we've played over the last couple of games, far better to concentrate on the positive than look at the negative before what is an important game again tomorrow. Keep the winning way going. 3 wins out of 4. We would normally accept 3 wins out of 4 every 4 games, but we haven't been getting that. So that's why it's important that we get that win tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to the game, Steve. It's fascinating, and what we're seeing there, Fury and Isak is off. Usyk, sorry.
I heard this. I heard this. Yes, I heard this yesterday. To be honest, it's not. There's nothing official coming out of any of the channels yet. But
I've just booked my bloody flight today.
How I?
Well, I got told. I got told.
I mean, this comes from the story that was spinning out earlier in the week that Fury had been put on his backside, didn't it? And that caused a lot of friction. And I know Johnny Nelson spoke without actually saying it. He said he'd been clipped in training, and I know that various people were coming out going, "It's a load of tosh. Don't believe a word of it." And now it looks like he has been hurt. So unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, it's not confirmed yet. I must put that put that across, and I think disappointing if it is, but not unexpected. Where I'm not 100% sure the Fury's in the right place for this fight. He's already moved it once. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, you'd be gutted because you were going to go.
Stu and I had tickets. Have tickets. Aye, bloody good ones at that. Aye, ringside ones.
Cracking fight tomorrow. Anyone who's interested in boxing, by the way, tomorrow night, Buatsi against Aziz. Don't miss that. When I was involved in the boxing game, I saw Aziz up front, up close when he fought my fighter Lawrence Osuweki. That was for a British title eliminator, and he's a very good fighter. Aziz Buatsi thinks he's got it all his own way. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. It will be. So
two good friends as well. Out the
clearly,
ring, two good friends.
Clearly, this has been announced, somewhere, because lots of people now are coming up with Usyk against Fury being off, but Sky haven't run with it yet. I'm expecting it any minute. So when I get confirmation, I've got confirmation, which you might have seen on the screen there, that Newcastle trip to Blackburn and the FA Cup will take place on Tuesday, the 27th of February. It'll be a 7:45 kickoff live on BBC, and it's awkward, but Tuesday night after a Saturday night 8 o'clock kickoff. Again, TV not being kind to us at all. George, Tyndall did the press conference. Were you awake for that?
I've heard enough about it, and I think isn't it appropriate when on the day that Klopp blames them for the new rules on the touchline. Because Klopp was saying that those new rules are all about Newcastle. Well, you know who he was talking about. He was talking about Tyndall.
And he was asked about it. He was asked about it today, Tyndall. Really? Tyndall said, yeah, he says, I think the rule was changed for us. He says, but I think we've adapted quite well. He says, from our perspective, he says, we've always stood together. He says, but I haven't been booked yet. He says, I haven't been told to sit down yet. And he says, if I do go a little bit too far, he says, then, he says the fourth official pulls us back. He says, but, I'm obviously behaving myself. He says, because we haven't done anything wrong. So I thought it was good. It was 40 minutes that we got on the Newcastle United official YouTube channel. That's where I sit and watch it. And I thought he was brilliant, George. He was every bit as good and better.
You use the word. It's refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is.
And you can see, I think you can see why him and Howe are such a good matchup. It's they're all good teams come in pairs, don't they? Morecambe Wise, Laurel and Hardy. Well, Howe and Tyndall is going to be another one of them because he seems like a right character, but in a good sense. And you can see how the players could bounce off that as well. And you can see the happy faces in the dressing room. The smilers like Miggy and. The lad that dislocated his shoulder, man. Come on,
Jacob Murphy.
They must be great to have them in the dressing room with the sort of nice, easy atmosphere that Howe and Tyndall seem to generate, and that's got to be a big part of what's happening to our team and some of our players. To play with that, it must be great, and. Yeah, I mean, to have a second in command who can handle a press conference like that and almost at the drop of a hat is just great and augurs well for the future. It's just refreshing. I think you and Steve used the right words. Refreshing was the right word to use, but also very professional. He was. My eyes are getting better. I could read that. Overall, isn't that good for the team and for the dressing room? That's the important thing, and that he can laugh off the technical area stuff as well. One of the most disappointing things for me in this last couple of months was the reaction of Emery after our victory. He couldn't look Howe in the eye and never mind shake his hand. In fact, he just threw his hand in Howe's way. He didn't actually shake his hand. He never got near Tyndall. He just off up the touchline. Wow. I don't mind. We'll have a hard time. We've had to put up with some losses this year, but I hope we never get like that. That's beyond the pale. I mean, although I've got to admit that over the years, as I've been chauffeur for a certain group of people in the back of a big car I used to drive around, there were quite a few bad losers in the back of there, I can tell you. Sometimes used to get me into serious bother when I was driving because they wanted to be away because we're lost. So, but no, I hope if the people on the bench get like that, what does that do in the dressing room? It must filter back. So yeah, absolutely refreshing. It's a word used now. I would agree, and we're lucky to have a pair like that work together.
Yeah, I mean, he did talk about, Unai Emery's failure to shake his hand. And he says some people handle defeat differently. He says, from my perspective, win, lose or draw, I always like to, to shake the manager's hand and shake the opposing coach's hand. He says, so, he says he handles it differently. And that's just, that's it. He says, but he says, I'm not going to change the way I am. He says, why should I change the way I am? He says, that's just me.
Absolutely.
It was refreshing, and I was pleased that the press used today as an opportunity to get inside Tyndall and to find out a little bit more about him, Mitch, because he's affectionately christened Mad Dog. He was talking about it today. And he goes, I can't change what people are going to say about me. He referenced social media a few times as well. I presume he keeps a check on social media. Certainly people send things to him, but he hasn't got a big head, which I found refreshing as well. He's not arrogant, and like your dad's just said, very, very, I would say good partnership. You can see how they work well together. I would say they're very like Eddie Howe and Tyndall are very like Clough and Taylor.
I think that's probably the best comparison you could make. What I found great about Tyndall today was he didn't duck any of the questions, because he could have. He didn't back away from them. But nor was he going out of his way to be confrontational or outrageous in his answers, because he could have done that. He could have put the Mad Dog front on and gone at people and made it aggressive and made it confrontational. And he didn't. He was honest, he was straightforward, he was matter of fact, absolutely down the line. And even when they're saying, is it on your mind to get up the nose of people and lose? No, not at all. I'm just going to be me. But also that strength of character to turn around and say, well, I am just going to be me, and I'm not going to change that, and I'm not apologetic for that. There's a very big difference from someone who's being overtly confrontational with answers and somebody who has a strength of character and is being honest. And I think that's something, you hear people waxing lyrical this season about Postecoglou at Spurs, and what people seem to like about him is he comes across as honest and not being deliberately confrontational, but he won't take any shit. I think Tyndall did that in an even better way today. And I was really impressed with how he handled himself. And if I was Eddie, I would use certain opportunities perhaps in the future to say to Tyndall, do you want to do the presser today? Because I think it did give you a slightly different insight into the mechanics in the dressing room at Newcastle United. And that's the kind of thing, as a fan base, we love stuff like that.
Yeah, we certainly do. Good to see him in front of the cameras, and I'm sure we'll see him again. From my perspective, I just, I thought it was refreshing. But I will do the press conference review, so you can listen to it tomorrow. Just a quick pointer as well. We've got thanks to Mitch, San Diego Mags. Simon from San Diego Mags has done a show. It's a half-an-hour show. Just introduces you to the fan bases around the world, and we've got a good half-an-hour chat with him. So I'm going to put that up for you tomorrow morning to watch as well. So two half-hour shows tomorrow, and then the professionals will be at its usual time on Sunday night of 6 o'clock. I know we've got lots of questions coming in and lots of people asking about the transfer window. So we'll do the last 10 minutes of the first half talking about that. Mighty Win said, "What do you think of Ndweni going to Annan Athletic?" Chris Jagger saying, "How long do you think it will be before Harrison will be in the first team at Newcastle United?" Just so you're updated, Isaac Hayden, he's joined QPR on loan for the rest of the season after his loan move to Belgium side Standard Liège was cut short. Josh Scott, the 21-year-old reserve midfielder and academy product, well, he's made a permanent move to Scottish Championship side Queen's Park. And Jay Turner-Cook, well, he's had his short season-long loan to Scottish side St Johnstone cut short, and he's now back on Tyne side. So he'd only made one brief substitute appearance. I guess my thoughts on the loan situation, Steve, is what's Shola doing, and what's Shola's CV for this kind of job? Is it maybe time to refresh this position? Again, it's something I brought up on the breakfast show this morning, but look, I wasn't really a Shola fan as a player. The Mackem Slayer image was great. I mean, he did very well in the local derbies, which of course is going to give you some iconic status, and rightly so. And he was a servant of the club, a good servant of the club. But for me personally, I always felt this was a bit of a jobs for the boys kind of title for Shola. He'd been very good behind the scenes, very supportive of some of the stuff behind the scenes, and a good ambassador, public face, if you like. But to be given a loans manager's job, I find like a loan arranger, if you like, it's not. I don't even know why they have to do this. Why isn't this the manager's job, or why isn't this Dan Ashworth's job? I always find it really strange. What's your thoughts on this? Because Jay Turner-Cook, short, his loan's cut short, one substitute appearance. Isaac Hayden's loan deal at Standard Liège doesn't work out. Something's not quite right.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. I mean, anyone who follows nufc.com, and that's the best place to look to see how the loanees, because Biffer always puts a little thing up, the loanees this week, how they've got on, etc. And the number of times you see, got on in the 71st minute, got on in the 83rd minute, didn't unused sub, and these are lads that have been lent to clubs. Where they're supposed to have the talent to be able to break in and basically hold their own and beyond. Scottish Premier League, Scottish Championship, Division 2. We've now got Dylan Stevenson playing in for South Shields. The lads don't seem to be getting the run that we anticipated they would, or at least the club would have anticipated they do. For some reason, I don't know what it is. I mean, there was a time where we lent under Ashley, and it's obviously a commercial thing. We lent 3 players to Glasgow Rangers, if you remember, and they didn't even get a look in. It was as though that was arranged in a pub somewhere, between the powers that be, rather than it's a situation that came out of the well-being of those players. But in the Shola one, I mean, yeah, it's a strange role, the loan arranger, someone to manage players when they move over to another club. The lads, I just don't see. I mean, on the flip side, we had Lewis Miley, who everybody who said would probably at the start of the season probably go out on loan. And he didn't. They said they would rather he stayed here, not because he was going to be playing in the first team, but because they felt he would be better in the family environment than being left on his own up in Scotland somewhere, or over in Blackpool, or wherever. So in that situation, we kept Lewis. And next thing you know, he's in the first team, and he's got had a nice little run. His stock level has risen through the roof. He's got a contract. That's probably 100 times more than he was on. And he's been talked about as the next big thing, along with certain players at Liverpool and certain players at Man United and Chelsea get talked about regularly. The press have picked up on it. The TV guys have picked up on it. What a performance the lad's putting in. Now, where would Lewis Miley have been if he'd gone on loan? He'd have been winging his way back along with Turner Cook, after one appearance. That's where they would have been. So you've got to question how many players have we lost from our academy because they just have been dumped, forgotten about, or given to a club, and the promises that the player would get game time just haven't materialized. You've also got to question whether or not in the player's head, the players that do go on loan feel as though they're being cast aside, they're being cast adrift. That's that. Once you go on loan, does that mean your days are numbered? Because you've got the likes of Kel Watts and people like that, who seem to have been on loan for like 4 seasons now, And then the strange situation where we've got a defensive midfield hole, only 3 central midfielders in the club, and Eddie still doesn't want to take and keep Isaac Hayden, and we move him out on loan to QPR. So I think there's all sorts of little dynamics going on within the club at the moment. With that, no reason for it, but you've got to question how many of our players who have gone on loan have come back and then broken into the first team, or have been sold and we've got either decent money from, or they've gone on to have a decent career at a high level. Majority of them just drift away and they end up sometimes completely out of the game. And I think that's extremely disappointing. It doesn't do much either, Steve, for the youngsters in the academy, because at the moment we'll have youngsters thinking they could be the next Lewis Miley, when in effect they're not. They're going to be the next J. Turner Cook, or the next Callan Watson. They're not going to see their parents for months on end because they're going to be stuck down in Lincoln or Portsmouth or Plymouth or somewhere like that. Very, very difficult situation, and I've got a question, and I will continue to question what we actually do with these lads and whether it is the best thing. And how often does Shola trip down? How often does he trip up to Scotland or trip down to see the lads, chat to them, find out what's going on, or does it all get done by Zoom calls and this type of thing? I just don't know. Mentally, I think players once they go out loan, especially the way that they're cosseted at the club when they're here, they must walk away shot. And I think some of them will find it very, very difficult coming back.
George, the loan system, what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I had a lot to say about it in the middle of the week, and there's an area in the club which it's not even middle management that our owners seem to miss a trick. They really need to surround some of these jobs, if they're going to have them, with not just with players who've been nice lads. Good. Shola's appointment looks like the teacher appointing the teacher's pet, giving them the milk monitor's job. That's what it looks like to me. And that it needs more than that. It needs somebody with hard football nous, and you might have to pay for somebody a little more than you might want to, but you get the right attitude in that, and it will do you good. Look at Elliot Anderson. Now there's the last player for me that came positive off loan. Wasn't because of anybody at Newcastle United, because of Joey Barton. Joey Barton was telling the world he had the Geordie Maradona in his team. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you every time you opened the paper, looked at the television, if Bristol were on, it was Joey saying, "Look at this kid," and he clearly adored the kid, and give him every chance he wanted. I can't see that happening with any of the others. Kel Watts, now I was looking forward to him being with centre back for the next 5+ years. He was so good, and he just seems to have either stood still or gone backwards. and some of the other kids as well that have disappeared. At the universities, I've said before, there's one or two of our lads who follow the younger teams, and some of the names that they chant about, they get on the bench a couple of times and then they just disappear. And these lads are saying, well, what happened to them? What happened to them? And so I think if there's going to be a loan manager, if that's a sustainable job, then they really need to think seriously about who it would be and what sort of pedigree they have, never mind what the kids have. Because I'd see little in the press about, as Steve has already said, about Shola going here and then watching these kids playing and talking to the clubs and all the rest of it. Hayden's thing at Standard Liège, should the player actually be left to fight with his loan club to get his money and that sort of thing? You know, somebody should be knocking on their door and saying, hey, you know, we're giving you the money, get it in the kid's bank, that sort of thing. I couldn't see Shola doing that sort of thing. So, and it does mystify me, and I think John Justice said it before in the strap, what Isaac Hayden's done to not be in this group. I mean, it's not too many years ago that Rafa was touting Isaac Hayden as an England player. Unless I'm mistaken, he was really, that's how good he thought he was. Well, that doesn't disappear overnight. What's happened? And so, yeah, you've hit a good one, Steve, in my view, that there's players going and coming back and you cannot see the value. And as I say, the only one in recent years that I can remember who got any value out of his loan was Elliot Anderson. And it weren't now to do with anybody here. It was more to do with Joey Barton singing his praises at Bristol. So, it needs a look at, because there's not that job. There's two or three other jobs which seem to be on the go that need a hard-nosed football person in not just a nice lad. You know, he needs a real professional approach, and our owners seem to be missing that trick at the moment in one or two places that they could do with a bit of a football education from somebody, and there's plenty of them around.
Yeah, Bobby Clark's another example, Steve, isn't he? I mean, there's a lad whose father was a professional footballer, eats, sleeps and drinks, wears black and white through and through, and yet he encourages his son to go away and sign for Liverpool because he feels as though he's not going to develop at Newcastle. Did he feel as though he wasn't going to develop because at some point in time they were going to send him up on loan to an Athletic? Was that, you know, that's the sort of, we don't know, but there's every possibility that that's where he thought his youngster's career could be heading. And he felt as though that this lad was far too good for that. So, you know, before he knew it, he wanted him away. And I think that's a terrible indictment on our academy system if that's the case. And also, you've got to question if you know it was potentially it was going to be out on loan. You'd question the way that we manage loans as well.
Yeah, Mitch.
Quite a bit of unpack. I am going to try and download a few things. The interesting thing about Hayden, by the way, is the owners of Standard Liège are 777 partners who are busy loaning Everton lots and lots of money and trying to get their hands on Everton. So that bodes well for them, doesn't it, if they're not paying their wages on time for that small club. But I think the whole loan system and what's going on with our academy players, I think strikes at something deeper that we've talked about for probably 3 or 4 years in terms of lack of pastoral care for some of those players. How do we get the best out of them as a person? We're treating a young footballer, not just a, we're treating the person on the end, not just the footballer. So doesn't, when he need to go after an athletic to learn how to wash his own skid marks out of his pants and not set the house on fire with a chip pan, you know, is that what he needs to be, a more complete person and come back a more complete player? Or does he need to learn how to take a tackle and get kicked up the arse by some hairy Scottish centre-back for 90 minutes and learn how to deal with it and toughen him up? A lot of these loans just don't seem strategic to me. They seem quite haphazard, that they just sort of happen without any long-term goal. I'm quite sure all the coaches know the players who've got the ability to go on to do more and players who are levelling out and hitting their buffers. If they don't, we've got a serious problem in our academy.
Yeah.
But it does seem to be there's a lot of scattergun approach to it, and if it works, it works, like Anderson did, and if it doesn't, it doesn't, like Crowell going to halves. And there doesn't seem to be much of an interest afterwards as to why. You know, and off you go on another loan, and let's see if this one works. It all seems very finger in the wind and picking the phone up to people you know. I'm wondering who's the contact at an athletic that Shula knows, for example, you know. And I think you're very right, and I think both Steve and my dad have made a good point in that. I love Shula a bit as a person, and he's an interesting guy to spend some time with. Loves Newcastle United, there's no doubt about that. But the time for having people like that in positions in Newcastle United's gone. We need the best of the best. The only set of loans I can think in certainly my recent football history, it's not that recent anymore, is if you look at what Ferguson and Man United did with the so-called class of '92, they all have very good loans. The season before they burst onto that season where he was going to win nothing with kids, and they had all had at least a season, if not a season and a half, at places like Preston and Bury, all local to Manchester, but playing at different levels in the pyramid. And they came back more complete footballers, and then he was able to drop them straight into that team, and the rest is history. Now, I don't pretend to know enough about Man United as to who came up with that and who managed that, but that's exactly the kind of blueprint we should be looking at doing for our academy players. Instead of being seemingly scattergun, and almost like you both have said, players disappear out on loan, and then some of them may think, well, that's me done then. What they should be going out on loan is saying, hey, I can come back and I can do what Elliot Anderson did. And there doesn't seem enough of that happening. There doesn't seem enough of that happening with any kind of planned strategy. It just seems like we're just going to toss everything to the wind and see where it lands.
Yeah, now Man United just lend £75 million players to overseas.
Yeah,
and get rid of their problems onto other teams overseas,
Exactly.
and air their dirty laundry in public, and then that makes players leave as well.
Classic.
All right, it's 6:10, time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks again to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you'd like to order some, then give them a call on 01768 210 102. Go to the website mrvickies.co.uk or drop them an email, info@mrvickies.co.uk. A big thanks to United Group Travel. They're a family firm based in Morpeth with pickups throughout the northeast. No strangers on our tours, just people you haven't met yet. They've got a presence on Facebook and a website, unitedgrouptravel.com. If you want to make a booking, give them a call on 01670 632 460 or mobiles 0791 666 4174 0795 71 41654. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. Let us look after you in your time of need. They're based on Old Durham Road in Gateshead, and you can contact them at their website, darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Email darren@darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or give them a call, 0191 478 2730. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And a big thanks to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. If you want to help the channel, hit the thumb up to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and share to your other social media. You can also pay a one-off fee of £25 to get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. Go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and click membership, or put your smartphone over this QR code. We also support the food bank on this channel. If you want to make some donations virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. We're also a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcast providers. Just search NUFC Matters. I'm also a part of the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show. You can listen to that Monday to Friday, 7 till 9 at thetooneuk.com. And if you haven't joined in the fun on a morning, please do. The audience is growing week by week. Thoroughly enjoyed doing it. We're 100 shows in now. Unbelievable that when you think about where it started. But yeah, the station is growing and growing. Good banter. If you like a bit of Northeast football, Newcastle, Sunderland and Middlesbrough, yeah, it is a good laugh. And if you like to come to the pre-matches with Gibbo's got a new home for the final 8 home games of the season. You can catch John Gibson and John Anderson tomorrow afternoon. Free entry, kids welcome. And that'll be from about 12:30 onwards in the concert room. Bit of pre-match music as well. Oasis, The Jam, Madness, The Buzzcocks, The Stone Roses, and Ando and Gibbo giving you their pre-match predictions. So free entry, get yourself to the Tyneside Irish Centre tomorrow, just short of Gallagher. Always well worth popping in there pre-match. And it'd be also good to hear John and Gibbo's views. Okay, lots of questions coming in from lots of people. I've got to be selective which one I can pick because we can all talk a glass eye to sleep. The fight has been cut. Those who are tuning in as well, Fury and Usyk is off. The cut on Fury's eye is going to delay matters. It's postponed. It's not off, but we will wait and see. James Slater says, question for the guys. Why are we not establishing partnerships with clubs overseas for a feeder system like City have within the City group? That way, we've got a clear pathway from the start to the first 11. Steve, Rome wasn't built in a day. Is that?
Yeah.
Am I right with that? Is that the way to answer that? Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. But I don't think City's feeder clubs lend players to each other either. You know, and City's feeder clubs are spread far and wide. I think they're more of a scouting network in a way. You know that it gives them the ability to have a presence, say, in South America, where they get the best of young South American talent. And obviously the competition for South American talent is phenomenal. And then, you know, some of the they've done exactly the same in India, they've Australia. I think it's more of a business thing. And it's an opportunity sometimes for business ideas to be spread, understanding the way that football adapts in the world. It gives them a presence in FIFA. It gives them a presence in UEFA. I think there's a lot more to City's tie-up that is to do with politics than anything else, rather than specifically football. I can't recall many players, for example, coming from New York City to play. There's probably a few players whose careers have been over at Man City that have gone to play there. Maybe some youngsters who decided aren't going to fit in and have headed down that path. But again, that's a difficult road to take because of the way that the American system operates. So I think it's more strategic than anything else and political. We look at, I mean, other clubs have done it for years. City have taken it to the next level, but Man United always had links with clubs in Belgium. Chelsea always had, right under Abramovich, links with clubs in Belgium. We've dabbled in it at times, but we seem to have links with clubs in like the Scottish Championship. There was an interesting development that I've read earlier in the week that I had been following from afar, which was the link that Burnley have got with Dundee. They have set up a strategic alliance, if you like, but no money exchanged, basically just sharing ideas, understanding each other's markets, understanding where advice can be gleaned and given, business-wise and everything. And I thought that was quite interesting because that was an American owner at Burnley who's only been in the game for 3 seasons, looking afar, but looking to a club that's been established in the Scottish Premier League for 100 and odd years, and basically learning a little bit about football, not just in the Premier League and in the Championship, expanding his horizons, and who knows, it may end up in a partnership. But I think everybody at the moment with Newcastle is just wrapped up with what kind of partnership we're going to have with Saudi Arabia and clubs there because of PIF. And I think that I'll be amazed if we ended up loaning players to either of those clubs that are owned by PIF and vice versa. I think there's probably more chance of tie-ups with the ladies' teams and looking for, giving opportunities to some of the girls over in Saudi Arabia to come over here and learn a little bit about how the football development for women is, and the Saudis are pushing women's football just as much as men's football. And as we're growing our ladies team with some of the players that they've recently signed, I think that that there's more scope for link ups that way than there will be in our first team, to be perfectly honest, because the standard and quality is so much different, but it'll not be that much different at the level that the girls are playing at the moment. And it'll be great opportunities for some of the girls in Saudi Arabia to get an experience of cold winters in Newcastle and traveling around and playing on pitches that they've probably never experienced before. But the quality of women's football is only going to get better at Newcastle. And it's also going to get better and better in Saudi as well. It's horses for courses, if you like.
I mean, at the end of the day, George, the women's team are doing very well considering where they were 10 years ago.
Absolutely. I hope there's some of the Saudi Newcastle haters, journalists out there watching and listening to what Steve Hastie's just said. How dare Steve Hastie say that women in Saudi Arabia are allowed to play football and allowed to come here? How dare they? It's a horrible place. What on earth are they doing letting women play football? It just gets my goat, and it still spills out on the television time and again. That match against Fulham the other night is still stuck here with me, I've got to say, with Lee Dixon and some of the others, but never mind. There's some great link-ups by some clubs, and I've got to say, one thing that slightly disappoints me, that we've always had good links-ups with some of the top Scottish clubs, Aberdeen, Dundee, and some of the slightly lesser ones like Buckie Thistle and people like that, where we've got lots of players over the years. And also, I can hear listening one of my years, there's an old guy who I used to go to the matches with when this used to happen, and we had Newcastle's first team, we had a Central League team, we had an A team, we had a B team, all being serviced. And one of my father's pet things to get onto was, why don't they lend them to Gateshead? Why don't they let Gateshead have some of these lads instead of they send them out into the Northern Alliance and the Northern Combination for somebody up at Linton Colliery to kick them to bloody death? They may as well get kicked to death playing for Gateshead. And that's 60 plus years ago. And so it would nice. These relationships take some building. You're right. Rome can't be built in a day, Steve. But we don't have to look thousands of miles away. I'm sure that there's enough good clubs not too far away that we could develop that relationship for the benefit of them and the benefit of our players. But there is a sad lack of that sort of thing with us, and I'm confident that with the backing that they've got and how they're progressing, that this is something that the owners will do, but it's not going to happen like yesterday. And I'm sure they've looked at the Manchester City model. I can't believe they wouldn't look at things like that that's already in place, and have done quite a bit. But I mean, somebody's saying about strong like with hearts, yes, and the other side of Edinburgh as well, with Hibs as well. That they've both supplied lots of players and very in very good conditions for both the club, the selling club, and for us. So, yeah, I would like to see some better relationships. But if the number of clubs within our purview, I think Steve's right again. It's not going to happen just with clubs in Saudi Arabia. It's got to be wider than that, and it needs to go to benefit of both clubs, all the clubs involved. But it would be a good system, and it might save, ironically, some of the things we've just been talking about, loans. It might actually make the loan system that we've got or we haven't got more sustainable and more transparent as to what's going on. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'll develop it, but yeah, right, it's not going to happen overnight. But it's needed. There's no question about it. It's needed if they're going to have a system where people can come and go on a professional basis rather than a haphazard basis, because that's what it looks like at the moment.
You just say, Steve, before we move on, you just talked about the women's team. Let's roll it back to 2011, 2012, when the parents of the girls who were working and playing in for Newcastle ladies at the time came to us at Fans United and asked if we could do anything to help with the publicity. The club were running away. 2012, Virgin Money, one of the biggest banks at the time in the UK, wouldn't let the girls wear Virgin Money across the front of the shirts, the sponsorship. Hang their head in shame now. That company would probably be crawling all over the women's football if they could get away with it. And it just goes to show. I think it was Wonga who eventually allowed the girls to wear their shirts. But it's only 10, 11 years ago that this was going on. And there were various other people out there who didn't really give the girls the support that was needed at that particular time. Colin Locke and his family were desperate for just getting the publicity and getting the word out there that the girls were trying to play football and scrambling around. And I suppose it's testimony to Amanda and Riyadad that they've embraced the women's football, but they've embraced it at a time when in my eyes, there was some dangerous precedents nearly set a couple of months ago when it looked as though the women's team would not, if they didn't get into the championship, would not be able to qualify for the Women's Super League, because they were going to turn the Women's Super League into a closed shop. It was only this week they announced that the Women's Super League will not be a closed shop now, and there will be promotion and relegation from the championship. Yeah. So it's vital that the girls' team get promoted this season into the championship, because the way that the WSL is going to be moving forward is that it's going to end up like the Premier League. It's going to come out of the responsibility of the FA, who have turned their back on it because they don't want to put the money in, and they're going to allow it to go to the free market, if you like. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Women's League grow over the next sort of 10 years when we're talking about the way it was 10 years ago.
To play devil's advocate, are we sure the lack of successful loans out is a Toon problem? Chelsea, Man City, Brighton seem to do okay. Beyond them, could it be the Premier League money generational issue, Mitch?
Well, that actually fits quite nicely with some of my thoughts in terms of, if you think of many of the clubs that have got multi-club models, Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest. If you look at all of the clubs who've got links and shared ownerships, there's not many of them seem to be using the loan system to their advantage at all. Now, how much of that is having the stuffing knocked out of it with FFP, coming down hard on transfers between the 2 or 3 clubs, I don't know. But certainly it isn't just us, and I think it's something that does seem to be a bigger issue within football at the minute. I'm not really that sure about where things need to be changed for clubs to be able to exercise those benefits well. City certainly aren't doing it. Certainly not to the extent that they tried to in the first instance. So whether we've got a bigger issue in football because people are wary because of other things going on, be it financially or otherwise, I don't know. But I know, I would agree, it's not just our problem.
Yeah.
Okay, we are flying through tonight. God, this show has flown over. A lookalike suggestion. David Dickinson, I think, is what you mean, Chippers, and Dunnell's just jumped on that as well. Yeah, you know what to do, Chippers. Send it in, mate, and we will feature it on next week. We will feature it on next week's show because we're full up with lookalikes this week, and not many dogs. You see, look, Keith's gone. We don't need to hear his laugh. So these lookalikes are definitely getting better. A financial one first, and when you spot the bloke of a fiver down the pub. See, I told you they were good. Noddy Holder, pitch invader at West Bromwich Albion Wolves.
Can't believe that.
Yeah, very like. There was a few lookalikes on there, some which I chose not to show. And Alan McKenzie, lookalikes, Lord Ralph Mayhew and Ted from the Fast Show, the Reform Party.
Gee whiz, yeah.
Very good.
Enjoy your holiday, Alan and Mozza. Back in the sun again. I hope you have a great time. Mullins from Wrexham and Higginbottom.
Yeah.
Not bad at all. And Stephen Lichtsteiner and Lee Evans. Good that. Told you I had some good ones this week. Sydney Bernstein from Beverly Hills Cop and Roberto Firmino. Thanks, Tom, for your weekly input. Steve Hasty on A Place in the Sun.
Yeah, me.
Yeah.
Moses.
Miggy Almiron, A Man on the Moon. If you look very closely, right in the middle, it does look like Miggy's face. I think that's
anything with a big smile is going to look like Miggy.
Well, that's a good point, George. And Alexander Isak, well, he wasn't wasting his time when he went off the pitch last week. Peachy said he spoke to him at half time. He's not too serious, but a bit cold, hence the hat and jacket. It's a very good likeness when you zoom in on that, by the way. And this one is Keith from Lee, Keith Patterson, with his head off.
Not me.
And Harvey Barnes by the time his foot injuries recovered.
Oh,
wow. God.
Jurgen Klopp standing on the cup. And here's Iggy Pop and his lookalike.
wow.
Look at the state of that.
And Liverpool's last working man calls it a day. I had to squeeze that one in. I'd forgotten about that in the tweets, lads, but that was a good one. This one as well. Henrik Mkhitaryan and Klinger from MASH.
Very good.
Yeah, very good. And Jurgen Klopp on his way to Leeds to watch Plymouth. Excellent.
That is spot on, that.
It is an all.
Steve Hasty spotted on an old 70s video.
God. Dear, I haven't even got a combine harvester.
And this is a good one from Steve Hasty. Shea Given. And who's that guy?
That is Hewitt, the tennis player, Australian tennis player.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
And that's supposed to be a statue of him.
Wow, it's nearly as bad as the Ronaldo one.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, Steve. It made the top.
Hewitt.
It made the top 10. This one's always going to get. This one's always going to be, popular. Stu Penman and Uncle Fester.
Oh, that's Stu. Cruel.
See, if you do like that, it's almost as if I'm not switching the picture.
Yeah.
Great man.
All right.
Absolutely.
I'll see him on Sunday. And yeah, this again, brilliant, isn't it? Jean-Pierre Bacry and Michael Ironside, Sandra Bullock and Famke Janssen, and Garrett Dillahunt and Peter Krause.
Wow.
I love the way that they are done. Like, there's a lot of work and effort goes into them, but they are brilliant. And I might not know who half of these people are, and they've got difficult pronunciations of names, but they do match the lookalike idea. I saw a politician interview this week on Good Morning Britain, and it just I thought it was Bob Geldof.
Bob Geldof young Una Stubbs.
That's excellent, isn't it? That really is. I mean, that is, and I'm blowing my own trumpet there.
There's been a lot on social media saying why the hell did she get her hair done?
what a clip. The top three, it had to have an Aston Villa connotation this week. So coming in at number 3, the Count and another Muppet.
Oh,
Good
Brilliant.
evening. Good evening.
Brilliant.
And number 2.
Yeah.
We're
Brilliant. Very like him. Very like him. But the winner, and I've seen this one before, but I just loved it. And made it. If it makes us laugh, it's got a good chance of being the winner, and it's this one. Thanks, Darren.
Yes.
Using the Facebook page, that is still one of my most favourite lookalikes. And it's almost as if Danny DeVito is actually looking at a picture of the kid.
It is.
But that's brilliant. Darren, thanks for sending that in. If you want to send us a lookalike, send them to us on Twitter or use the Facebook group and use the Facebook page. I do go on there. I do find them. But thanks for all of that. And we will endeavour to show as many of them as I can. We've already got a few coming in for next week already, including Chip as David Dickinson, Steve Hasty one, which we will keep for next week. But that is your lookalikes for this week. Okay, Newcastle United back in Premier League action tomorrow, and great news. It is a 3:00 kickoff. It is not live on television, and it is a sellout, as you would expect. 3,188 tickets taken up by Luton because this is their first Premier League visit to St James's Park. So it's a historic day for the Hatters. Following losses to Notts Forest and Man City, Newcastle, of course, are bidding to avoid a trio of successive Premier League home defeats for the first time since 2021. Ipswich have failed to win any of their last 14 games at St James's Park since a 2-0 FA Cup success in 73. And in the league, Luton have left St James's Park with maximum points just once in 23 visits, and that was in September 1937. Team news, we don't know. As always, we don't know. Jason Tindall gave very little away, learned from the master, Eddie Howe. We know that Alexander Isak, Callum Wilson, Harvey Barnes and Joe Willett could be or may not be involved. Nick Pope, Joe Linton, Matt Targett, Elliot Anderson and Sandro Tonali, of course, all remain available. Daki Hashioka completed his transfer from Belgian side Sint-Truiden on Tuesday. He's a Japanese international, and he potentially could make his debut at St James's Park in the match tomorrow. Referee is Tom Bramall, second game in charge of a Newcastle fixture. Last one was the 2-0 win over Burnley at St James's Park. And Michael Salisbury is on VAR. As I've said, no TV coverage, but you can listen to it on BBC Radio Newcastle and, of course, get updates on Radio 5 Live. So, big game because it's our next one, chaps. And as always, before I get your opinions, your views, we will listen to Stato.
Hello amigos, some stats before the game against Luton tomorrow. After 2 consecutive defeats in a row at St James's Park, we're looking to avoid a 3rd straight defeat at St James's. What would be the first time we do this since 2021 under Steve Bruce. When it comes to our home form against Luton though, the last game at St James's Park was back in 1992 in the then 1st division under Kevin Keegan. We won 2-0. And actually, our last league defeat against Luton at St James's Park is back in 1937, also the last time Luton did the double over Newcastle in the league. When it comes to the O Cup and competitions, Luton won in 1973 at St James's Park in the FA Cup, still their last win here for more than 50 years. Since then, 21 games at St James's Park, 16 wins for Newcastle and 5 draws. When it comes to games with a 3 p.m. kickoff on a Saturday, Eddie Howe has never lost a game at St. James's Park since he stepped in charge. And this season, on its own, we have 4 wins out of 4 games with a very impressive goal difference of 14-1. When it comes to Luton's form, though, they have won 3 out of their last 5 games, which is more than they did in their first 16 games of the season when they won only 2. Also, they averaged 2 goals per game in their last 5 games versus only 1 goal per game in their first 16. So they are a team in form right now. Also, when it comes to games for Newcastle against newly promoted sides, only 1 defeat in the last 17. But this came in December against Luton, also on a Saturday 3 p.m. kickoff. So let's see what the guys will do tomorrow. We need a win to turn our season back on track, and we should get it. Cheers.
Yeah, somebody just said in the chat, God, I thought Toon Statue was naked. Yeah, I've got to be honest. I've got to be honest. I had to look twice when I saw the video, but thankfully, no, he had a very nice autumn style jumper on. So thank you once again, Toon Statue, for that, Andre. Big love to you and all the Bulgarian supporters. So yeah, Steve, big game. Toon Statue mentioned there that Luton have hit form. They certainly have, and I mean Newcastle were part of the run that they put together because we came a cropper down at their place. But Jason Tyndall was quick to point out today as well that our confidence is high. Also, Newcastle have, beaten the Jinx to an extent. Couldn't win an away game for love nor money. We've just beaten Fulham 2-0, Sunderland 3-0, Aston Villa 3-1 away from home. And we are getting players back as well. And we don't have the distraction of midweek fixtures with European football now. And, a point that was made by Eddie Howe last week, a point that was made by Darren Tyndall today, the lads are training together again and they can implement what they need to implement, and it's working well. It just seems that now is a time for Newcastle to probably kick on. And the fact that the teams above us haven't really taken advantage of our bad luck means that we are still, within touching distance of a European spot.
Absolutely, Steve. And you know what? We've had some stormy weather over the last month physically, but I think as far as Newcastle United is concerned and Eddie Howe, I think we've weathered the storm now. I think on the pitch we've pulled it back together. I thought that Tuesday night, I thought Eddie's game management was absolutely spot on. I thought the way that he handled the substitution of Miley just at the right time. The lad could have been swamped. I did message some of the guys and said I think Miley needs to be substituted simply because I thought the game was starting to pass him by, and I didn't want a Rick that was then going to fall on his shoulders, being out of position or something like that. Because as a young lad, I thought he's done tremendously well. But I just thought that Eddie stepped in just at the right time. He made the substitution absolutely perfectly. Obviously, he made the substitution of Isak and Miggy, but didn't shuffle things too much. He didn't try and push Miggy back onto his usual right side. He left him on the left-hand side. And I thought that the way that he allowed and made a slight tactical change and allowing Bruno to play that little bit deeper, give him that freedom, but protected him. Didn't protect them much from the tackles, but protected him in terms of the space that we were allowed to create. And I thought we managed the game really, really well. And that's why I'm looking forward to tomorrow, because I think what we've got back to being able, when we want to, play a counter-attacking game. And I think the way that Luton have been playing recently, they've been free scoring. We've been very impressed with them. Ironically, it was the game against Newcastle at home that seemed to set them off on a nice little run. But I think if they come with the mindset that they can continue to play like that, and let's face it, had a great win and midweek, scored 4, didn't concede any. They're going to be up for it. But I think our counter-attacking game, if we play it right and we protect each other and work well, I think we can certainly pay dividends for us. I'm expecting and anticipating that it'll be exactly the same lineup. I think Isak will play, but if he doesn't, then it'll be the team that started the second half with Miggy on the left. And how well has the team performed when they've had that opportunity, as you mentioned, Steve, to get some training under the belt, some familiarity on the training pitch, and and the opportunity, as we talked about last week, for Eddie Howe to get back and instill on the training pitch the mentality and the physicality and the style of play that he wanted them to do, because we'd lost a little bit of that shape over the previous time through exhaustion, through quantity of games. And we've said on here, or I've said on here on a number of occasions, that I think this is the sort of squad that needs to be managed on the pitch. They need to know what the game plan is when they go out. They're not let's get out there and run around and do stuff, because when they do that, the whole thing breaks apart. And there were times when we were playing midweek and then weekend and midweek and weekend and traveling, and they weren't getting that opportunity to bed the philosophy back in, the mindset and the mentality, because they were both physically and mentally exhausted. I think that now is the time when we will kick on. And you look, and we talked about it on Wednesday, you look at the teams that we've got to play over the next 8 to 10 weeks. I can see no reason why we can't go on a run and potentially pick up 30 points from the next 10 games. I genuinely believe that, because I think the self-confidence is back. And I think with players coming back in, the likes of Barnes and Willock, I think that we've got the opportunity to kick back on. And that's why I think it'll start tomorrow. And that's why I'm looking forward to the game. And I know that, you know, Luton will come here hoping that they can get something. But I think that they'll be very, very lucky if they go away with even a point tomorrow.
Okay, George, thoughts?
Yeah. I can't see Newcastle United tomorrow allowing Barkley and Townsend to run the game like they did at Kenilworth Road. They're not going to get away with that again, surely. That'll be well and truly looked after. And if it is, they won the other night again, and it was those two that made the game for them. There's no question about that. I can't see Eddie Howe letting that happen again. And the good thing about the Villa game was that we weren't just back to where we were. We actually were a step up, in my opinion, in that game. From 10 minutes, you could see on the look on Emery's face, he knew he wasn't going to win that game. And let's see some more of that tomorrow. That you know, go out and be positive and have a go at it. And the other thing about Villa was that Eddie showed his plan B, if you like, towards the end when he played 5 across the back, and it worked a treat. It worked a treat. So the thinking's back. The energy seems to be back. There's no reason why we shouldn't win handsomely tomorrow, in my opinion. And as Steve just said, go on a run which will collect 30 points at least. So yeah, it's a very positive time, I think, for the club. We've jumped all the hurdles that's been thrown in front of us and come around not too badly at the end of the day, because the others haven't kicked on. And European places sticking in the face. I mean, I think the people who drew the fixtures up didn't do any favours at the start of the season. But we're sitting here now and we've played all the big ones. You know, there's nobody to come or go to that's going to be a big hurdle for us that much after these 10 games. So no, it could be very, very positive. And as I say, I can't see Eddie Howe's team tomorrow allowing Townsend and Barkley run the game like they did at Kenilworth Road. That's no, I can't see that happening at all. The other thing is that the team that finished with Gordon in the middle, I'm not worried about that. If it happens to be that, as Gordon showed in that World Tournament, he ended up player of the tournament, and that's where he played. That role that we're worried about, we're not going to have. So if it's him, I'm up for it. I mean, the big thing about him is, like Wilson does, he's not leave the defenders alone. He's like a nasty little wasp when you're on a picnic. You know, you're swatting it all over. Well, that's Gordon when he's really on his high dose. So that wouldn't worry me tomorrow at all. In fact, if he is there, I can see him getting 2 or 3 goals. So yeah, very positive tomorrow for me, and looking forward to it. Really.
Mitch, your thoughts on the game tomorrow?
Echoing what both Steve and me dad have said, really. At home, Luton have the opportunity on a small, tight ground to try and bully teams, and that sounds, from speaking to a Brighton fan funny enough this evening, exactly what they did to Brighton the other night. And once they were 2-0 up in under 5 minutes, that was game over. They were only ever going to make it. And Brighton were trying very hard, apparently, to play a passing game, and they just didn't have the space. And well, there'll be plenty of space on St James's Park, that's for sure. And I don't think they'll have their own way entirely. And it's up to us to put a performance on. We've got to build on that Villa result. There's no doubt about that for me. It'd be a crying shame if we don't, and then we'll go into this next run of games really with our tails up. I would actually like to see we give them a damn good thumping.
Yeah.
Just to remind them that, you enjoyed your win over with down as home. It's never ever going to be that easy again. Thank you very much. And I think we can't underestimate the fact we've had the group together properly. We've had the group together training properly. We've had the group together working on things together, not just in recovery, not just scrambling to the next game and seeing who's fit. And I think we could see some surprises on the bench tomorrow evening. That the lack of activity in those last few hours of the window makes me think that they obviously think a lot of people are back closer to being back than we realise. That's the only logical explanation for me as to why something wasn't done to help reinforce a few things. So I think we'll see an entertaining game. We might have to be patient. I think they're going to be a bit backs to the wall, and they'll defend as hard as they can. So I think the patience might be one of the buzzwords tomorrow. But I think once we get our noses in front, there's no reason why we can't just drive it home from there.
Question for all three of you before I go for the prediction, and that's just about the situation that we've got in the midfield area. We've got Anthony Gordon and Bruno Guimaraes, both one booking away from a suspension. Is that going to come into his thinking, Steve, tomorrow, do you think, with his team selection, depending on whether, I think more with Wilson and with Isak as well, that both of them are, Wilson's coming back from injury, Isak withdrawn, I think, for safety concerns, for coming off just as a precaution, probably going to be okay for tomorrow in some way, shape or form, but it's going to be in his mind, isn't it, about these bookings, and he's not really going to want both of them suspended for the same 2 games, Steve.
Potentially, but that's it. There's nothing you can do. It just needs a referee who is a little bit suspect, a player who makes a meal of a tackle, and the card comes. I think if we had the one thing you can't do is you can't wrap a player in cotton wool. You can't try and protect the player from a booking. That can come from anything. They can come from indiscipline. They can come from, like I say, from something that an opposition player does and he reacts, gets goaded. The one thing that Bruno didn't do on Tuesday night was react to any of the challenges that went in. When we've noticed when things haven't been going his way earlier in the season, he's put his foot in. He's done things before. It's not because it's happened to him. There's been 1 or 2 of his bookings where it's been retaliated with. There's no question about that. But I think what we've seen over the last couple of games is the way that he's tempered that, and it's the loss of Joe Linton alongside, and I think he knows that he's got to be very, very careful. But I don't think you can, as a manager, you can go out with the mindset of your selection by going, well, I'm going to make him miss this. I think you just got to live with whenever the suspension comes. And at the moment, maybe it's when we get Barnes and Willock available, and we genuinely know they're available, and Eddie can bring them in, then he's not too worried about having Bruno out for a 2 game when he knows he's got them 2 to slot in. But not playing Bruno because he's worried that he hasn't got anyone else. It literally has no one else in midfield, by the way. It can't be in his mindset. He's just got to sit Bruno down, and he's just got to have a quick word with him. But Bruno's professional enough to know what the situation is anyway, because we saw that on Tuesday, as I say. And just before what I was going to say was, Mitch mentioned, and I've mentioned, and George, all 3 of us have mentioned how much the team being together and the training and the little things are like in training midweek. How good were the quality of some of the corners that Trippier put in?
Yeah.
on Tuesday, you know, we've seen him really struggle mentally and physically, but the quality of his final ball on Tuesday was absolutely sublime to watch. And look at the benefit we got from it in terms of goals. An aspect that we haven't had in the team for a couple of months now. But it just goes to show that when a player gets his head right and when he's physically not tired, because he's had the benefit of a little bit of a break, and he's also had the benefit of just taking everything out of his mind and just working on the training pitch and in the gym and just loosening himself. That's what happens, and that's why we've said how important it is what we've been doing off the field and having that chance of a total refresh, which is what we've done with exactly the same players.
Yeah, I just want to remind people at the end of the show, I'm going to play a little video at the end of the show. So I would appreciate, I know a lot of you dive off about 5 minutes before the end. If you can just hang around, because it's something important. I've got a new book which we've released, which is donating some money to a very important charity. But you'll watch the video, you'll understand it. I'll play that at the end of the show. George, do you agree with Steve? Do you think Bruno and Bruno and Gordon won't be protected and he'll just go for it and just whatever happens?
If there's one thing about Eddie Howe, he's a pragmatist. He goes with what's needed, and shielding players like that's always going to come back and bite you in the bum. It's a bit like people who go on the pitch with a half-hearted tackle, and you know fine bloody well that they're going to get knocked the first time they pull out of a tackle. They're going to get, and the same thing applies to this. And we play softly. You can guarantee it, at some stage it'll come around and bite you in the backside, and we'll be worse off. I think he'll just go for it tomorrow, and as he usually does. And I don't think there'll be any hanging around. And for what it's worth, and it's only my opinion, and for what that's worth, if we're stuck, I would put Lascelles on and just shift Fabian Shaw forward 10 yards. To be
perfect. 40 yards further forward from what I'm hearing.
Seriously, the quality of his play, the long balls he plays, they'd be just, in fact, if anything, they'd even be more dangerous 10 yards further forward. But that's just one of my daft ideas, but never mind. But no, he won't. I'd be amazed if he tries to protect them, because it comes back and bites. If that's football, as I say, you pull out of a challenge because you think you're going to get hurt, you'll get hurt. That's for sure. And this would hurt us as well. So I play the way we did at Villa, and bookings might not be even something we need to worry about, because Luton won't even touch her. It's more likely that they'll get into trouble for trying to kick Bruno and Gordon than the other way around. So, Gordon's, it's sad. I think when Neil said it the other night, Gordon's in the position he's in more by reputation than actual bad fouls. Some of the fouls he's been booked for really were trivial, that other people would have got away with, but he hasn't, because he's Anthony Gordon. But that's a long answer to your question, Steve. No, I don't think he'll protect them. He'll just play his game and go for it.
Same for you, Mitch.
Yeah, you can't ask them to change their game, because then they're not going to be the same player. And so you've just got to deal with it. I think if we get both of them through to the cut-off period without at least one of them serving it too much down, I'll show me backside in Goldsmith's window with a 50-carat emerald shoved up my hook. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And so we've got to deal with it. And that's obviously what we're preparing for. We can't ask them to do something different because we're worried about it. Because if we go in then worried about that, are they going to put that foot 2 inches further forward? That makes a difference between sticking the ball in the back of the net or not. Of course they're not. So, yeah, just got to deal with it.
Okay, did you take the dice with you, Mitch? There we go.
I did. And the dice says, a healthy little... Whoop, shit. Sorry, that was 3-0, by the way.
3-0, which is what I've gone for. What are you going for, Mitch?
I think I'll take the same. I'll take the same.
George, what about you?
Oh, I'm very bullish for tomorrow. I'm 4-0 at least.
4-0. Steve?
I was going to go 3-0, but because you two have gone, I'll go 3-1. I'll take a penman. Stick with Stewie.
Stu's on the penman again.
All right. Oh, I bet he is. Okay, just time for this. The day I met where we asked you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle, past or present. Paparazzi, thank you. My wife, Julie and Sandro Tonali. Apparently special offer in the January transfer window at Asda. Second time in a week, I think, that they've met over the aisles. So thanks for sending that. Great stuff. And as I say, always gives us a chance to play this music. And we always like to give you a bit of a laugh. So here he is, right on cue. So, breaking news, Aladdin has been banned from the Magic Carpet race. Apparently, he's been using performance-enhancing rugs. Good stuff. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. That's it, folks. The end of a magical 2 hours, as always. I am going to play out with a charity video, which I'd like you to watch. It's only about 8 minutes long.
Stephen,
go on, George. You always do. You're always like Eric Morecambe. You always right at the end.
In response to Ian, hi Emily, I'll be on the Instagram very soon.
I can see him throwing a can at the screen now. Thanks for that. We'll be back, as I say, tomorrow with Jason Tyndall's press conference review, and Sunday night, 6 o'clock, the professionals. But for now, take care. Thanks, lads.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for waking us up.
So in 2023, we received a manuscript. It was anonymous, and within this manuscript, there were some monologues for female actresses, something of which there's a shortage of. And we were asked if we would be interested in publishing the particular manuscript. We said yes. This is the book From Dialogue to Monologue. And we were also asked by the third party if we would be interested in selling that book to try and aid people who have got dementia. The reason being that the author had somebody in their family who had suffered from dementia and had received care within the Northeast and wanted to give something back. So that was the reason we got involved. We thought it was a good opportunity for us to help put something back and to help a worthwhile cause in the Northeast. I looked across the Northeast trying to find somewhere that would be, would like to receive some kind of help and support, and we stumbled across this place in Brunswick. So I contacted a good friend of mine, Neil Jackson at Media Arts. He came down to the centre with me. We got a tour. It was a valuable 2 hours for us to come and see how the centre worked, meet the people who run it, the volunteers, and we knew this was the place to benefit from this particular project. So that's it, really. We set about the challenge. As I say, the book has been printed From Dialogue to Monologue. It's on sale at our website, and all proceeds go to the centre.
Well, it's been in existence for around 25 years now, just a little bit over 25 years. It was originally on the site of an old school, and it's obviously been repurposed and rebuilt, and it's been in operation for that period of time as the charity's been running. We have a residential care unit upstairs. It's a dementia specialist unit. We also run a day centre, and that is also operated from the building. Again, it's dementia specialised, but we do offer services to people outside of the dementia diagnosis. But we also run some home support. So the home support's like it's domiciliary care, whereby our carers will connect into somebody's family home just to kind of keep them as independent and active in the community as possible, and give them that little bit of extra sort of wraparound care to make sure that people are safe and actually still living fulfilled lives. We, as part of it, we have employed workers, but as well we have some volunteers that come and help us do things like fundraising and basically kind of help us to promote the charity. So it's got a lovely family feel to it, and that's something that we're really kind of keen to keep, develop and push. So we're predominantly North Tyne side into Newcastle and Northumberland as well. We kind of sit quite nicely on the border there. We tend to operate, our home support tends to be more in the North Tyneside areas, but we have residents that connect in from all of those three sort of authorities, if you like. We have some funding from local authorities, so they will pay for the particularly residential care and the home support side. They will often pay a significant amount towards, but some people are also privately funded as well. What we tend to find is that people will come in as a privately funded individual, and over time then they'll go on to a more local authority funded model. But then we also are a charity, so we're constantly fundraising. We're always trying to develop links within the community with other businesses and things like that as well, just to help us out. You know, we are a small charity, and it's something that, you know, for us is really important to be able to develop those links and also just have that little extra stream of income coming in, so that we're able to kind of do those nice extras that hopefully would set us apart from other people. It's really important that things like this are vital, and I think for a couple of reasons. One is that, you know, hopefully it brings in some much needed funding, but also about raising the profile of not only Dementia Matters, but also, you know, the sector as a whole. Care sector is a very difficult place sometimes to be a part of, you know, for family members, and, you know, it can be very harrowing, but also in terms of actually delivering care, you know, so it's great to be able to raise the profile and also kind of shout about the good work that our really dedicated care staff do from day to day. So things like that are fantastic, and it's just lovely to have those kind of links as well with different areas of the community.
I think it's excellent. As an actor of a certain age and female, I find I'm very limited in choice. It's always the same kind of style or age bracket, and I find for a female 40 plus, it's definitely something that's needed. So yes, I'm absolutely thrilled to bits to do this one. It's such a worthy cause, something that's massively underfunded. I mean, you can see in the centre today yourself that everybody's overworked and more than likely underpaid and probably underappreciated for the things that they do. So I think if there's any kind of avenue that can be explored to raise awareness or just a bit of promotion for the centre itself, I think it's a really worthy cause. It was just like the pictures. I can't believe it happened. I mean, you don't expect it in places like this, do you? Blue Tits taking the top off the milk bottle is about the most exciting thing that happens around here. Of course, there was the shrapnel that fell on number 19 during the war. Mrs. Croxdale keeps that in her china cabinet. And the pig they slaughtered in Bluebell Meadow, Either never did get anyone for that. But all suspected who it could have been when the club started selling pork sandwiches. But a robber in my post office. It was over in seconds, but it seemed to go on forever, like slow motion. Unbelievable. It doesn't give you time to think. You just do things automatically. And that stand with the greeting cards was the saving grace. To think I resisted putting it there. But Mr. Fox was very persuasive. He'd welded the rack together himself from an old bed frame, and it was far too heavy and cumbersome. But his daughter had handmade the cards, and she's in a wheelchair, so you feel obliged to do your bit, don't you? And to be fair, we did sell a few, especially the drones at Buttercup Lane. Very naive, but honest in crayon. Now, it just goes to show you never know what's around the corner, because that Robert certainly didn't. He tripped over it and knocked himself out.